Good morning, welcome back, and thanks for joining me. I'm Kara, and this is Glazing with AMACO. Today, I'm going to talk about PC31 Oatmeal and AMACO Gum Solution. And the reason that I bring these up together is that PC31 Oatmeal is a glaze that is a favorite with many potters for some of the beautiful effects that it creates. But it also has a downside, and that is that it thickens in the jar. So, now part of the problem, the main problem with oatmeal is that it has ingredients that are soluble. So over time they absorb lots of water, and as they absorb water they become more gummy, and there's less water for the rest of the glaze. So instead of the ingredients being in suspension, they are actually kind of gelling up. So we do add gum solution into oatmeal to help it stay in suspension, help with its brushability, but it does tend to thicken a lot in the jar. And my recommendation is that if you can get a brush into it, then go ahead and use it. So I'm going to use this as an example. This is another jar of PC31 oatmeal, and it also is quite thick. If you can see in there, it's quite thick, but while it's thick, I can still get a brush into it. And so it may go on thick, it may go on a little bit clumpy, but even if it's thick, if you can brush it, I recommend that you use it as is out of the jar. Do not add water to it. This will not help overall. It will help short term to make it a little thinner, but in the long run, you'll end up with more thickening, and as you're adding more and more water, it changes the composition of the glaze, and you'll end up with it cracking. If it cracks when it's on top of another glaze, you'll probably be fine. If you're using the oatmeal as a base or by itself and it's cracking, it will probably crawl when it's fired, so you do not want it to be cracking. So you can see that this is drying pretty nicely. I actually added some gum solution just 2 weeks ago to this, so it is a nice consistency even if it is very thick. So as I said, if you can get a brush in it, go ahead and use it as is. However, if, set that one aside, if, like this jar, I'm not really succeeding. I mean, it's thick, it's pasty, but I am still getting a brush into it, but it is not going on nearly so well. So I am going to show you how to use gum solution to adjust your glaze. And the main thing is, first off, you need to use some distilled water. Do not use tap water, and do not use very much distilled water. I'm just going to use about a tablespoon. There we go, maybe a half tablespoon. Use an equal amount of gum solution. Now you'll notice the gum solution is like really gummy. It's thick, it's almost stringy. If you have gum solution that's been sitting for a while and it's really watery, it probably has gone bad. And yes, gum solution does go bad. So I'm adding about an equal amount. I want to use about an equal amount of gum solution to the amount of water that I added. There we go. Close my gum solution up nice and tight. Put my distilled water away. I'm going to use my palette knife Now you can use an immersion blender, that'll make this a lot faster, or a fork. But you'll quickly see that the glaze does become more workable. It's still going to be thick. Don't expect that it's going to suddenly be like really thin like cream. It's going to be thick, more like a yogurt kind of texture. So keep stirring until it's a nice consistency. Gum solution, if you have any glazes that have gotten thick either because they've been left open or because they're older, and some glazes do just kind of gel over time as the ingredients start to absorb more water. If your glaze has become thick or it's cracking or peeling when you apply it or it's crawling, try adding some gum solution. Does not take very much. Do not add more water than you add gum solution, and you will find pretty quickly that you have a more usable glaze. Makes your glazes nice and smooth, and they go on much better. So one of the things that the gum solution does is it slows the drying time. This is still a little on the lumpy side, but at least it's a nice consistency. Look at that. Now if I get my immersion blender out, I can make this like velvet smooth where it is not going to have any lumps at all. But look at how much more easily it's brushing on already. So older glazes, if you're having trouble with them, you can add gum solution. Ann Bowers also was asking if she has just a little bit of a dipping glaze left, if she can add gum solution to it, and the answer is absolutely, that it works great for converting a dipping glaze into a brushing glaze. So I'm looking for a fork, and no, I don't have a fork here. So go ahead, and what we recommend is that you add a small amount at a time, small amount of gum solution to the glaze at a time, and you may even want to just add it to a small, just take a small amount of the glaze out and add a little bit of gum solution until you get to the right consistency, and then kind of extrapolate from there how much gum you need for the larger batch. But if you just have a little bit of dipping glaze left, not enough to really dip in, go ahead and add about a teaspoon of gum solution at a time until you get to a good consistency. It should be, it should not dry the moment that the brush touches the wear. So it should like stay a little bit damp for a little bit. You see how this is still a little wet? So the gum solution slows down the drying time, and that also helps it go on more smoothly. So that's one method. So absolutely, you can add it. You can add it to different products, different manufacturers' products. So if you have a glaze that's from another company and you're having trouble brushing, you can add a little gum solution. It should work just fine. AMACO Gum Solution also contains an antibacterial agent that can help keep glazes from molding and turning bad, but it's sort of a balancing act with how much we add. So some of the glazes we add as little gum solution as we can, and then others we add more. So yeah, see, nice and brushable. Now, as I was saying, if you're having cracking, and you'll see there's no cracking on either one of these. Even this is going on pretty well with no cracking. But it can, and if you start seeing cracking in this stage while it's drying or before it goes into the kiln, that can lead to crawling. Now, oatmeal can crack, and as long as it's as long as it's on top of a different glaze, as I said, it's probably going to be okay. Someone else, Trisha had asked about a potter who was applying gum solution first, just straight gum solution, and then putting a glaze on top. I don't recommend that. I don't know what the video in question is, but I don't recommend that. I have found, because we do have a video where we show using chalks on top of raw glaze, and kind of like where I used the smugs a few weeks back, using smugs on top of a satin mat. And we have found if you use the gum solution on bisque and then put glaze on top, it will cause the glaze to crawl. So I'm not sure about putting glaze on top of straight gum solution. That I can't really speak to that, but I don't recommend it. But it does, when used with chalks, you can put, for example, a layer, 3 coats of glaze, and then after that's dry, put a coat of gum solution on top, let that dry, and then you can use the chalks. The gum solution hardens into kind of like a shell, and so the chalks won't gouge the raw glaze. So in any case, it's still a little lumpy. I can get out my handy immersion blender and blend that up, and it will be just as smooth as cream. As you can see, like I said, this is one that I added gum solution to just 2 weeks ago. Do keep in mind that oatmeal, it does thicken the longer that it sits on the shelf. So when you buy oatmeal, be prepared to use it soon. And I think that is most of the things that I can tell you about oatmeal. If you have oatmeal and you're not really sure how to use it, one of my favorites is put it over iron luster. It creates this amazing purple, runny, fluid reaction that is just so unexpected and so much fun. And that's one of my favorite ways to use it. But it is a great accent with lots of other glazes as well. So, happy glazing. I'm glad to be back, and I will see you guys all next week. Have a great weekend.